What could be more important to a parent than the health and safety of their child? I know this for a fact. I have 5 small children, and I'm very concerned at all times about their health and well-being. And I haven't had the experience of having adult children yet, but I'm sure it doesn't stop then, because once you're in it, you're in it. I already feel that coming on. I'm always going to worry about them. But right now, while they're children, I'm very concerned about their health. Now, public schools, they require you to bring in shot records. And we all know that vaccines are loaded with thimerosal and squalene and formaldehyde. So when you have a homeschool, you don't have to worry about vaccinating your children. Now, if there's ever an outbreak of something like polio, you can always go and take your child in to receive the vaccination. But today, I believe it's up to 52 vaccines are required before the age of 12. And we wonder why we have so much attention deficit disorder and autism. And these things aren't needed when you homeschool. You don't have to even worry about vaccinating your child. My wife and I, our philosophy medically is that God created children healthy, and if you feed them healthy and you let them have a healthy lifestyle at home, they will remain healthy. If there's ever a major outbreak of something, then I guess it would be okay to bring them in for certain vaccinations, not all, such as the chickenpox vaccine. They can just live with it. But you can keep them away from vaccines when you homeschool your children, and you won't have a school breathing down your neck for their shot records either. Another major thing is that there are no school shootings at home. I've never heard of a homeschool shooting, and there's not a bunch of screwed up kids running around here willing to blow away all their classmates, and that's very simple to understand. There could be nothing more scary I could imagine than your child away at school and you hear that there's a school shooting or a stabbing or something like that. It's quite amazing and sad that that's happening, and you know, my heart goes out to public school kids. I'd worry about my kids every day that they left the house if they were in public school, because you never know what could happen to them there. Another thing for their health at home is that you can monitor what they're eating for lunch. So many times, I remember when I was growing up in public school, I'd watch kids take an apple or a full orange and throw it in the trash, and then they'd eat chips and a Coke for lunch, for instance. Or French fries. I saw a lot of kids just eating a bunch of French fries and getting like a lemonade. See, that's not going to fly at home. My kids are going to eat something healthy and nutritious for lunch, and we're going to monitor that while they're here at home. So it's going to be a great improvement to many children's health. Along with that, school lunches, they're giving them the BHT milk and the MSG-ridden preservative foods. If you ever watched that movie Super Size Me, you'll know what I'm talking about. And also, when they're at home for their health, they're not exposed to children who would have diseases such as hepatitis C or HIV. They're going to be at home and safe in their environment. A great thing about homeschooling is that your kids aren't exposed to peer pressure for 8 to 9 hours a day. Our children are exposed to peer pressure just when they have extracurricular activities, and they can handle it with flying colors. But at public school, you constantly have peer pressure around you, and I know this for a fact. You always have peer pressure, and it gets quite annoying. It's a very intimidating feeling and very persuasive feeling that you can get. And my kids don't go through that, and I think that they are happier because of it. Another thing is there is no bullies in homeschool. It wouldn't be tolerated if one of my sons decided to pick on anybody. It's not going to happen, and you know that somebody's not picking on your child or singling them out for being different if they're different or anything like that. They can be themselves without the fear of getting bullied. Another thing is, and I thank God for this, is that your daughters in homeschool never undergo sexual harassment. And if you're a girl, you know how bad that is in public school. They will never be judged on their features so long as they're being schooled at home. You can't help that in the real world, but all you can do is prepare them for it. But in public school, it's almost relentless how much these girls are being harassed. And it's actually a very sad thing. But your daughters are safe at home. Your high school age daughters, you don't have to worry about males coming up and slapping them in the butt, or telling them different things about their bodies that they don't need to be hearing. And I saw that all the time in public school. It's just a fact of life. And they're safe here at home. Another thing is that they don't have a lot of references to sexual things while they're at home. They're not going to learn a lot of the things that these children are learning, I guess, through the internet these days. Deplorable acts that I didn't really even know about until my adult life. You know, it was, maybe some of them were like a joke when I was in high school in the early 90s, but things today are just completely out of control in public school, and they'll hear all kinds of stuff. It'll keep their mind a little bit more innocent for a little longer. And another thing is that they are not exposed to peer pressure, influences of drugs or alcohol or smoking, because they don't care. They're homeschooled and they're not subjected to peer pressure, and they're not taught that this is the cool thing to do. And another thing on that subject is they're free from materialistic pressures or consumerism pressures. My 11-year-old daughter, she sews her own dresses. She makes these little pioneer dresses. She got real heavy into that Laura Ingalls series. And she sews them all by herself. I mean, cuts out the denim and everything. And she makes little buttonholes and puts the buttons in, and she goes around like this. And sometimes we'll go into a store and you'll see little girls her age at 11 gawking at her clothing, and she doesn't even care. She's just oblivious to the fact because it doesn't matter what these dumb kids think. That's the way her mind is, and she doesn't think that she wants everything at the store. Kids in public school, I notice, are a lot more greedy. Just because I see it at the store. They beg their parents for stuff. You know, it's funny. If my wife and I walk through a toy aisle, I'll make a video of it maybe one day. And we are not asked for anything. They don't ask for a single thing. And there's 5 of them there. They're not reaching for anything. They're not even looking at these things. They only want what their mommy and daddy will give them. And they don't want anything else. I think it frees their mind from a lot of the materialistic things of the world. It allows them to dress modestly. Some public schools have the uniforms, the girls have the small skirts, and my wife and daughter choose to dress modestly. So I think that that's a major advantage, and it keeps them very safe from other students. Keeping your kids safe from teachers is another important thing. A lot of people just trust the teachers naturally, but many of these teachers aren't worth trusting at all. How many times do you remember when you grew up, if you went to public school, did you see a teacher picking on a student, and everybody in the classroom is laughing when they don't understand something, or they couldn't read something good enough, and the teacher is being scornful and kids are cracking up at them? These teachers pick on these kids, and it ruins their self-esteem a lot. And I remember that many times, more than I can count, in public school when teachers did this to students. Another thing is that the teachers often have biased political views and religious views. I remember I had one teacher that always picked on me for being a Christian. I'm not kidding you. Picked on me for being a Christian. Told me, look, the Bible's fake and it's just there for a good book, a good reference on history. That's about it. The rest, all this God stuff is a bunch of malarkey. And she was also a major feminist. And she'd put these types of innuendos in every type of paper that she'd hand out. And that woman, to this date, annoys me. She was one of my high school economics teachers. And she just basically drove me crazy. And I've seen this many times where the teachers will put their own political views on your kids, rather than you putting political views on your kids. I know for a fact my children are going to grow up understanding the constitutions and the rights of everybody. And that's something that I don't feel is taught very much in public school at all. Another thing, even in private schools that I've seen is, for instance, if you go to a Baptist private school, which is very common here in Texas, the Baptist teachers are often not even Baptist. So you can have this mixture of religious doctrine being put onto your children, and rather than your own religious doctrine, what you feel is right. And that gives a parent a very good advantage over any type of private school or any type of public school, because they can teach their children the way they feel is the truth about their religious beliefs. And I don't think you're going to get that in public school whatsoever.